Hello and welcome to another episode of Chico Unscripted. It is a great honor of mine to have the famous Gambian and Pan-African YouTube traveler Gano Did It. And so the goal of this conversation today is to be able to talk about what it is to start a YouTube channel in Africa, especially from Africa's smallest nation. Also, tell us more about what it is to see and to travel across the continent. We talk a lot about the Africa Continental Trade Agreement and area, but the reality is, can we actually do business across these countries? Can we actually be able to connect with people across those countries? And then lastly, we had an interview in my farm in Guinea. That was about 2 years ago. And then
Right.
here we are. I'm interviewing you, and you're in a different part of Africa. I'm now in your country. And so we can
Mhm.
also talk about all the things that have happened in between. So, for those who don't know you, why should people follow your page? Why should people subscribe to your channel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always I always enjoy talking to you and your conversation and all of that. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah. So for those who don't know, I'm Gano Did It. I travel around Africa, showing you why showing you things that you don't normally see about those countries, right? I show you things that that I don't necessarily what people show. Like for example, when I go to a country. I visited like at least this is how I think. This is how I travel. Right, I get to a new country. I visit it as a. I show the country as a local. I travel the country as a local, right? As if I'm from there, right? So that's why one of the things that I do is when I get to a new country, I spend like the first 1 2 days just traveling around without filming, without doing anything, just going around, just meeting people, talking to them, just understanding the country from a local perspective, and I try to show that as much as possible, right? So that's pretty much, yeah, just going around Africa, showing you countries, showing you cultures, and also businesses as well. Yeah, because business has been a passion of mine since. So I try to do that one as well. So for my videos, it's not only like, okay, if you're interested about certain country, but also even investors, right? People that want to invest in certain countries, like my insights and topics that I touch on, I can give them an idea about that country, at least a rough idea, right? So yeah, that
Well, the
is.
interesting thing is, you started with business stories, right, in the Gambia. Tell us a bit about how did you start, and what was the premise behind those first business stories, and then that evolved into doing the business interviews, and now where some of your videos have actually brought hundreds of thousands of dollars of investments to the people who have actually been interviewed.
Mhm. Yeah, so like I said, business has been this passion of mine since I was like a little boy. So I found myself on YouTube. These were the type of content that I was consuming, right? I was mainly watching business videos, how this guy made this money, how they built this business, how they did this. That's the content that I was consuming on YouTube on a daily basis. But the thing is, I there was no Gambian entrepreneur to see there, right? There was no like, oh, this Gambian guy, this is how he's doing this. There's none. It's either American or Nigerian. Those are the ones that I was watching, right? So I was exposed to Nigerian content very early on, Nigerian businesses and things like that very early on because they are out there, right? Their businesses and everything, and especially America as well. So I was like, yo, something needs to be done about this, right? Because I'm Gambian, right? The business environment in Gambia plus the one in Nigeria or America totally different, right? So I was like, yo, I need to see, okay, that it is possible, right? I need to see that, not just to see that, oh, it has been done in America or in Nigeria. I want to show Gambians that look, it is actually you can do it here because these people are doing it. So that is how pretty much I got into business things. But the first channel is actually the same channel, but when I started, I called it Gambian Insider. It doesn't have my name or anything. I called it Gambian Insider, and I was just pretty much doing research about Mohammed Jah, the tough, this is just different businessmen. I was just doing research and then I'll just do voiceovers and post this video. So I ran the channel for like 1 year or some months that no one knew that it was me. And then the channel grew for like 8,000 subscribers without. So that shows you like, okay, people really needed this, right? And because it was like really quick. I think like within 3 4 months, my channel was already monetized, and it just kept growing. So I was like, whoa, this is because it was not done before. Like I would say, I was the first person to ever do that in Gambia. So it just took off like that, right? And then as time goes on, and you know me, I'm this person that whatever I do, I really need to feel. I need to feel that excitement in whatever I'm like. I know it's not a right mindset to have. If you want, especially if you want to succeed long term in something, you really need to keep going, even when you are not excited about it. Even when times are like dark, you still need to keep doing it, right? But for me, I got to a point where I got bored with it. I was like, this thing now, this whole thing is just being repetitive because I felt like I did so many stories, right? The agriculture, the cement, the different business sectors. I did videos about them. So at some point, I felt like I was just repeating. I was like, I just put a hold on it. I was not doing it anymore for like a year again. I was not just doing any videos, but the channel was still kept on growing, right? And then my friends was like, at some point, I told my friends that, look, you see this channel, I'm the one that behind it. And if same friends that kept pushing me like that, I should go back and do it. I was like, nah. So at some point, we even agreed. I even wanted to give him the hand over the channel to him, so that he can go and just continue what I was doing. It's just voiceover, so he can continue. But he said he don't have what he doesn't have what it takes to do that, so he did not, right? But then after a year later, I ended up like going back at it. But then now I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do like voiceovers. I'm not going to be doing a lot of research behind the scenes. I'm actually going to meet these entrepreneurs, like talk to them in person, right? That's how I changed it from Gambian Insider. I turned it to Gano Did It. I deleted all the old videos, right? And I started fresh, like Gano Did It. And then I started interviewing like business people. And I actually started with my friends as well.
That's amazing, man. I think that in itself shows your own entrepreneurial mindset. Whereas one, you want to do something that you're excited about, that you're curious about, and you're looking around. Why is there no content about Gambian businesses? But it's also understandable. The economy is not that big. It's actually the smallest country in Africa. So at some point, you get saturated with how many stories you can tell, right? So
Right.
there won't be as many stories to tell, as many industries to tell because you have to talk about the most successful ones. After 10 or 15, maybe there's not much. But
Right.
I think the pivot to doing the face-to-face interviews gave you now a broader understanding of these people's stories. It allowed for more people outside of the Gambia, especially the diaspora, also to understand what it takes to build business back home. But I want you to tell us from the business side of YouTube. And a lot of creators on the continent say that YouTube is not monetized in their country, or that they struggle to make money online. But you grew a channel to today. I think it's 143,000, 145,000 subscribers, starting from Africa's smallest nation, right? And that is an accomplishment in itself because one, very few people in the world know about the Gambia. Very few people are focused on Gambian content. So tell us about that algorithmic side of it, right? What have you learned growing quite a successful channel for a young African that pays you on a monthly basis, right? You've had millions of views on your channel. How did you go about it from the algorithm side? What did you do?
Right. So in the beginning, like I said, for me in the beginning, really, I wouldn't say I struggled to get views or something, because in the beginning it was like, but also I had some strategies that I put in place to like get those views. Right. I was using like Facebook to funnel, right, to get people on my channel. But then that aside, the algorithm, right. In the beginning, I was not really just worried that much about that, right? Optimizing for, I was just create and post and then people will watch it. Because I think at that time there was like less content about Gambia at all. So it's just like Gambians saw it and then they click because there was that excitement. I was like, wow, we are seeing this video about Gambia. But now it has gotten to a point where being good isn't enough, right? Just because you are putting good videos out there, it is not enough, right? You need to like now optimize that, the thumbnails, the titles, the keywords that you put in, because it is like kind of saturated. There's like millions of YouTubers, and then, but now also it has gotten to a point where, for example, like you said, started in Gambia, right? One thing I realized, like you said, most of like the countries, they're not monetized. Gambia is part of those countries that YouTube partner programs not available, right? So for a lot of these creators in Gambia that are like doing that, we all use like United States as our location or UK or something like that. Like, because if you use Gambia, it just doesn't work. You'll not be making money from it, right? Even though for me in the beginning, really, I was not even looking at the monetary aspect of it, right? I was just doing it for fun. I was just enjoying it, right? The first time I think I received some serious money was like what? It was like $120 or something like that. For me, I was like, wow, $120. Wow, here I am. Like, I was like, wow, this is cool. We can do something
Yeah, I'm
about
a
it.
boss.
Yeah, we can work with this, right? We can work with this. And yeah, and at the time also I was working, so I was making like similar amounts, right? So I was making similar amounts. So when this started, I was like, okay, this is we can work around this. I can focus more on this thing now that I saw something from it. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a fuller man. We love money. We like money so much. So I was like, okay, now we need to lock in on this thing, right? So that's how we started. Actually started like really going in depth, actually studying this thing, studying other creators, right? Also, but for the Gambians, there's no one to look up to, right? So you always study creators outside, right? So you study what they're doing, right? Like you really study it, and then you read a lot of things and watch videos about how this whole thing works. I'm telling you, it's a whole lot of work, right? It takes more work than people just see the finished product, but it's a whole lot of research. What you do behind the scenes, it's intense, right? Because you don't only just focus, okay, when the video is done, it's out there. But before then, like I said, the title, right? You actually start with that. For me, for example, now you start with the idea. Before you even start with the video, you start with the idea, right? For example, if this is the type of idea that videos that you want to do, you search that on YouTube, you look at it. What do people think about this type of videos? How does this type of video, how do they do, right? Because it at some point you're spending a lot of time, especially now that I'm traveling, I'm making videos. I wouldn't want to go to a country, right? Spend money, travel, create videos and stuff, and then you put them on YouTube and you realize people are not interested in this thing. And now you got to a point where you're not creating for yourself, like you're creating for an audience, right? You have to create what people want to see. You have to put out there what people want to see pretty much. So like the idea itself, you have to like actually research it and validate it, right? Look at it on YouTube. Because people watch these type of things. You understand? So before you even start working on a certain video, you have to like check it out first. Like, is this something that But so also there's no pattern, because sometimes those videos that you think are it has happened to me several times, right? Some of the best videos on my channel that do really well are the ones that I was like, this one I'm not too sure of, right? The ones that I'm really certain, I'm like, whoa, this one is a masterpiece. I went all out on this. It doesn't do well, right? So it's also another thing. You don't even know exactly what is yeah, because you don't know exactly. Sometimes you've put so much effort on something in one video, you're like, yeah, this is it. This is the one. It doesn't do well. Videos that you're like, this one, it does well. It's the algorithm also has a mind of its own, Yeah,
And
it has a mind.
I've learned recently the algorithm also has evolved away from just having many followers, because now AI has also become an influencer, to content that actually people are looking for, content that is sticky. So as we evolve now into your travels across Africa, tell us a little bit as to how do you now create content, right? What's the philosophy behind your content creation stories? What are the stories that you're looking to tell? How are you going about that whole planning?
Right. So now that I'm traveling more, and then there's a lot of travel videos out there, right? But then there's none, right? Or I'll say there's a very little, right, about African traveling to other African countries and experiencing Africa as an African, right? There's a very few creators that are doing that. So that in itself is like, still to me, it feels like it is still untapped, right? There's every country, like before I go, I check out the videos and stuff. I see a lot of videos about that country, but it is mostly not done by an African, right? Right. So for me, the angle always that I'm trying to look at it is like, okay, I'm going to this country, but with a lens, right? I'm going with this lens of, okay, an African exploring Africa, or trying to understand this African country from an African perspective, trying to understand these people from this African perspective, from a Gambian, coming from this one of the smallest economies, smallest country, right? So that is always the lens that I'm looking at it from, right? Because I feel like that is now my angle. That is the edge that I have over this thing, because there's a lot of creators that have already done this, right? So you cannot just go in doing the same things that they're doing or they've already done. So because chances are people have seen those videos, right? So you have to have like an angle that you're taking it from. So for me, I always make sure that, okay, before I go in, I'm like, okay, what angle, where am I picking this from, right? It's either, is it that I'm going to the local markets? Those are one of the things that I do, right? So there's this ritual, right? Every country that I visit, because I feel like if you really want to understand people, you want to understand this country, you have to start with like where the people gather, where they meet, like the locals, so the market, right? That's why I start with the markets. I go to the markets, I talk to these people, try to understand. So that is like the approach that I take, right? First, the human stories, I focus more on those ones, right? And then after that, so this is the approach. First, I go at, not even plan. I don't plan too much, right? Like, oh, this day one, this is what we're going to do. This is the script. No, I don't do that. I just go there. Whatever happens, right? And then, but of course, whilst during my stay in that country or whatever, I'm studying, I'm understanding, I'm writing down, I'm noting things down, right? Things that I think would be interesting to people. So after now the editing process, like the post-production, that is where now you just start piecing all of these things together. Like you actually script, write down, okay, this is what happened, the history right now, okay, like these countries, this is right now. Let's say Nigerians, this is how they are, this is how they are thinking. Why are Nigerians like this? To understand this, you have to go back, because this is how they are today, but there's something that happened in the past. That's why the country is the way it is today. So I also make sure that whatever country I bring in a little bit of history, because I'm showing you right now the present, but then to fully grasp, to understand like what is really happening now, you have to understand the past, right? So I bring in a little bit of the history, and that takes a lot of research, and I research a lot into those things to know. Sometimes they might be accurate, sometimes they might not, but that's why it's a community, it's a YouTube. In the comment sections, people will tell you, oh, this is not, you are so wrong for this one. It's not true. You are lying. I'll say, thank you for correcting me. I will adjust that the next time. You understand? So it's this whole learning process, and for me, it's actually that is why I also pivoted, like, because like you said, like I told you in the beginning, business stories, but even that got repetitive. When I was interviewing entrepreneurs in Gambia, it got repetitive. I was like, yeah, I need to go out. But the travel, when you go to a new country, because I'm this person, I get bored quickly. I get bored very easily, right? Before this place, you're bored by this place, you've moved to another one, right? So these days, we just keep this excitement going, right? So that at least we stay interested in what we're doing, right? So that's, for me, it's like every country, there's something to learn. There's something new there, right? So yeah, I like being caught off guard. Something's happening, going to a new country, then the military guys taking your drone and whatsoever. So I like that. All those things are like,
like what happened to you in Guinea, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
It seems like you haven't forgotten that experience, because the drone is still there.
I will never forget.
So tell us a bit about the difference between when you do business content and when you do cultural and life content, right? Across different African countries. And why I want you to make an emphasis on this is because we hear a lot about the African Free Trade Agreement. We hear a lot about doing business across African continents, scaling businesses across Africa. But I've lived and worked, invested, built businesses across different countries in Africa. You've also traveled by road across different countries in Africa. I've done that too. And one thing you can see is it's not as easy as scaling across the US or scaling across Europe. It's different countries, different cultures, different business habits, different laws. So it's not simply because you built a successful business in one country that you're going to be able to replicate that same thing in another country. So give us, from your experience doing and the business content, but also the cultural and life content, how is it doing business across Africa? And then how can we achieve that African integration from an economic perspective?
I mean, I don't want to sound like a pessimist or something, but I mean, this is just for me, but I don't want to crush like people's hopes or whatever. But based on my experience as someone who I've been to like what 23, 22 African countries now, right? And then this is one thing that I pay close attention to, right? I look at the business, like the business environment of every country. I just try to observe it, right? And then there's this pattern, right? Obviously, there are people from like, okay, for example, if you're in Sierra Leone, there are people, a lot of people from non-Sierra Leoneans who are doing business there. Every country there's that, right? But then you will find that, okay, for Africans, right? For Africans from all Africans, they are not in the industries or sectors that actually like generate serious revenue, right? You know, they're in the small scale, you know, on the side, small thing doing, you know, just being on the corner there. But the actual business that are actually generating revenue, that are adding to the economy and they're extracting as well, most 9 times out of 10, they are not owned by Africans, right? And then as Africans, if you try to do that, it is like so. That's why I always say it's like we don't know each other. We don't know a lot about each other, like as Africans, right? It's because also that is where the media comes into play and all these things, right? That's why it's very important, right? So because there's no, for example, there's Sierra Leone, there's no, for a Gambian, there's not much information for you about Sierra Leone that you find it interesting to even go to Sierra Leone. So that's why in Gambia, you hear people either tell you to go to Europe or go to America. If you tell Sierra Leone, they say, what are you going to do there, right? And then the same thing for Gambia, right? But then you find that there's non-Africans that are doing serious business, serious scale, and really extracting from those places. It's because of also they even pay, right? They have experts that go onto these grounds, do those research, get the information, and bring it back to them, and then they go in there pumping money, right? That is one of those things. So what I've observed is like to scale like across Africa, like especially from what I've seen from other Africans that have done it, it is either you first really established yourself in your country very well, right? Very, very well. And then you, through the governments, not through you, like, oh, I'm going through the governments, right? They'll invite you over and then you start doing some 1-2 here and there. And then that's how you know, that is the way that is the observation that I've made, for example, on how some of these people have scaled outside of their countries. Right?
Uncle Tough is a good example of that, right?
Is one of the examples.
Mohamed Jai and others.
Yes. So those are
having also lived in those countries makes it easier, but that's not accessible to everybody, right?
It is not. And then also for someone like me, for example, okay, I want to go and start something in Kenya, right? I want to go, and it is so. The other time we were having this conversation, right? It is so difficult to do that, right? It is. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like if you're not like an American or a European or something, and then you come with a lot of, you know, at least they have this idea that, okay, he's coming with something, even though they might not even be, you as in coming from another African, you might be coming with more, you know, funds and stuff, but then they don't see that. I think it's like this, I think the way we see each other, it's just the way we see each other, you understand? That's why I say that we don't know a lot about each other, right? Because, for example, if an American investor is coming into your country, you already have this built perception about America. Okay, as an American, what are they bringing in? So you already have that. Where did you get that from? You've never been to America, but where did you get that from? Because of the
Hollywood. It's the whole Hollywood culture of business, New York and London. We have this impression that they have, and it's true, they're the centers of capital. I'll tell you something about Kenya, having lived there too, is that the law itself says if you're going to come and invest, you need a minimum of $100,000, right? You need a minimum of $100,000. So the government makes more money from big investors coming in than Africans who are trying to go to a bigger economy and try to make it. Now, the West African culture and the East African culture is very different. Very, very different. But one thing is interesting. Most Kenyans think that West Africa is Nigeria.
That's the thing.
Because and the only image.
Why do they think that? It's because Nigerian media. No, exactly.
Exactly. Right? So Nigerian media has shaped. If you come with your name or me, my name, they'll immediately attach it to a name that they saw in a movie, right? And if a Nigerian was arrested for drugs, you being a West African, you'll be taught also that you're the same.
Exactly.
While there's a very, very smart, very reliable, very ethical Nigerians who are not con men, who are not in drugs, who are not involved in any shady business, who come to Kenya to do business. And
Right.
then there's a lot of Black Americans who also come from the US, who come to Kenya and other countries to do business. From the moment where you have the money, things become easier. From the moment that you come looking for the money, right? From the moment that you come to South Africa, Kenya, or Ghana, or even here in the Gambia, when you're coming from outside and you're coming to look for money, the locals would think, why are you coming to take our jobs, right?
Exactly.
And it's relevant to what's happening in South Africa today, where the Africans are fighting Africans
Mhm.
while they're all struggling, right? And you having seen this, let's just be honest and blunt with people, because we're also talking to business people here who they watch these videos. I'll tell you one thing for sure. A lot of the people who have invested with me in my projects, who have watched your videos, they watch your videos in order, one, to find investment opportunities, but they also watch to understand how it is to do business in that country, right? And one of the truths that we don't tell people, because we also want to inspire them, is doing business in Africa is extremely hard.
It
It's
is.
extremely complex, and it takes more time, more resources, more effort than you think you need in order to succeed.
Yeah.
So, from your personal experiences and all the business people that you've interviewed, and this, this encyclopedia of knowledge that you've developed, what advice would you give an African who is abroad, who wants to come back home to invest in any country? What are the basic pillars that they need to have as a mindset in order for them to succeed?
Well, that's a very good question. So first of all, this I get this question, especially even Gambians in the diaspora. They ask me this question, right? First thing, okay, some of them, what they say is this thing that, okay, I want to go back home, but I don't want to go now, but I want to send the money, do some business. I'm like, first of all, based on experience, based on the things that I've seen so far, Gambia. Let's start with Gambia, and then I'll go into other countries. Gambia is not a country where you want to invest in, right? Especially you want to do a business of your own, and then you want to be there. You run it. It will go down, right? Even though you see those in America, also you see people that build business, big business. They are not even there. The owners, they just invest and they work. Gambia is not. It's not that place, right? It just doesn't happen, right? And I don't know why that is, right? You just cannot build a business outside. It just doesn't work, right? But if you're coming in, like you said, okay, now I'm coming, I'm going to Gambia, I'm going to Nigeria, I'm going to where to do this business, right? There are a few things that really you need to. I mean, I think it goes across the board for everywhere, right? And this is just based on conversation that I had with business owners, right? It is this idea that, look, first of all, if you're trying to do the right thing, right? You're trying to build right. You're trying to build like that solid foundation, right? To grow. People are going to hate you so much for that because of why you're trying to. Oh, so he thinks he's better than he thinks this guy is wicked. This guy is this. He's that. Because of you're trying to do the right things. You're trying to set the right foundations, right? So first things first, like be ready to fight, be ready to be hated for even like for your first like laying those foundations, right? Starting out, like be ready to fight, go to war with people, right? Because first of all, you have a certain mindset, you have this thing that you want to work this way, and that there are people that are committed to go the other way, to not do the way you wanted. So for you to really get this thing right, you have to be willing to be like really committed, like lock in, like the way we say in this our Gen Z slang, like we need to really lock in on that, right? And if that means fighting with people, to make sure that they see the vision, and that is going to take time, right? So that's just also another thing, like it will take time, whatever it is, right? Even if you have the most money or whatever, it will take time because you cannot build alone, right? You, Chico, you know exactly what I'm telling you. You started this in Gambia. You cannot build alone. If you have the best vision, you have this, you have the money, if you don't have the people that see your vision the way like you want, it will not go anywhere despite your money and whatever, right? So there's this one thing that I say, like people, like your circle, your team that you're building is the most important thing, right? And sometimes those are the hardest things to find, like talent. Finding talent is like almost, it's almost something. For me, I've been trying, like even with my this YouTube business channel. One of the things that I struggled with the most is even getting like editors on board to get someone that you can work with, right? It is difficult to get, right? So it's this thing that be first of all, it's like, okay, if you come in, you have this vision, you have to be really stubborn, you have to really lock in, be willing to go to war and really protect that vision of yours, but then also be willing to like really go at it alone, right? Be willing to really go at it alone, not like do it alone yourself, but then you have this vision. Some people don't see the things that you're seeing. Be willing to be like a stranger in that and really just lock in and go all in on this thing, right? And then thirdly, also, like try as much as possible, like the team, get some right people, and even if you're gonna get them from Nigeria, that's what Uncle Tough really succeeded in doing, that, right? He moved people from Gambia, Sierra Leone. He was moving experts, like really competent people. He was just moving them around, right? Because so these are, if you're operating in Gambia and you cannot find whatever, I mean, Nigerians can come and live in Gambia for as long as they want. They just get it. So you can get those things, right? So you can be operating, running in Gambia, but still you can get Nigerians to come and run that business for you, and then it will work, right? So these are some of the things, right? These are some. I mean, it's a lot of things, but then these are
It's
just
a lot of things for sure. But you said one is you have to be ready to fight. No, one is you can't do it abroad. You can't be sitting abroad and building a business back home
can't
as a solo founder. You definitely need for that to have local partners who are also shareholders in the business. So I think that's the first thing. Second, you said you have to be willing to fight for your vision. I think I'm a living example of that, because no one believed that pineapples could grow in the Gambia. I remember once we were having a conversation, you and I, in Brussels, and you asked me, so why hasn't anybody done this, right? And I was like, because no one has had the courage. Yeah, because no one had the courage to do it, right? Just like the same as you. When you started, I think no one had the courage to even go interview these business people besides the people of the media. So I think it's important to fight for your vision. I like the idea of going at it alone, which means that you will get disappointed along the way. You will have people who will abandon you along the way. You will have partnerships that will break, along the way, and you shouldn't be afraid of that. But one thing I think I will add is you have to find like-minded people too, right? Like you have to make it a goal from the beginning. At least for me, that's how I look at it. Every business idea, I have a not to do list, right? So things that I don't do. So I don't start businesses. I don't start. I don't start any investments on my own where I don't have like-minded people who are willing to walk with me or invest with me or grow with me in that. And the reason why is because I am very conscious of my mortality, or I am not immortal. And as much as we are, very, very ambitious and very visionary, we want our visions to be sustained one way or another, everybody. Right. And our culture and our fathers and our forefathers, the way they've taught us is do it all by yourself, right? And then when you die, it's done.
It's done, yeah.
and I've seen many businesses today where the kids don't want to take up the business because of how much they saw their parents struggle to keep it running, right? And so that also means that those parents didn't find the right partners to be able to build those businesses. And that is just like finding a wife, right? You can't just say, okay, this is one, I'll just marry this one and go. You have to try until you get there. Learning the language too, I think, is very important. Or at least having local partners who speak the language. I think you're in Egypt right now, right? Yeah. How is it there for you? You speak Arabic?
Yeah, I speak Arabic, but the Arabic that I speak is like the classical Arabic, right? And Egyptians, they don't speak that, right? So it's hard to communicate with Egyptians. Even if I speak the little Arabic that I know, the classical, they find it funny, right? They laugh. They're like, "What are you saying, bro?" So,
which is your favorite country of all the countries you've visited in Africa? Which one do you feel like I could literally settle here, get married here, raise my children here? And it could be multiple countries.
Yeah, for me right now, it's actually 3 countries. The first one really was, it was Nigeria. Nigeria was I think it was because it was the first country that I traveled outside of Senegal, Gambia. So because of all the stereotypes and the negative things that I've heard about Nigeria, but the moment that I arrived there, it was like all of that was. Of course, there are some things that are true about, but then for me, because the reason why really you fall in love with a place or a country, it always has to do with the people. It's not the landscape or this, that. It's always the people, right? Even though the infrastructure as well is important, but the people are first, right? So for me, number one is really Nigeria. And then the second country was also Nairobi, right? Kenya. When I went to Nairobi first time, I really fell in love with the place. I was like, well, I see myself actually living here. And then third is in Egypt as well, So that's why actually I'm here now. But yeah, but it's this thing that it keeps changing. And then also, like, I've realized this thing, right? If you're a traveler, you get to a new place for the first time, you see a lot of things new. You're like, wow, this place, I love it. But if you live there for long, you'll see why. Like, everywhere has flaws, everywhere has problems. There's problems everywhere, right? Actually, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, right? I was like, okay, I moved here, I like mainly for the convenience, right? I was like, okay, I can have access to this. If I want to travel, this, I can do this, like for convenience sake. But then you come here, you realize, okay, there's also some problems, right? So, and then that had got me thinking, I was like, really, you know what? Everywhere you go, there will be problems. There will be some things that you will not be very. So I think the best thing really to do is just make your homework, right? Like, for example, if you are, just make sure, like, if you're going to these countries, you're not going there for like, okay, because of my home country is not working, let's go there to, like, you understand? Like, try as much to make your country work. Like, the reason why you're going there, it's because of you lack this at your home. How about you try or push for things like that to get those things in your home, so that you don't have to, so that when you go into these countries, maybe you're going for vacations, or maybe you're going to invest in there or something, like, just to grow or scale, right? So that's how I was looking at it from, like, lately I've been thinking, like, you know what, we just have to make Gambia work, man. But sometimes also making Gambia work also, man, it's like, man, it's I don't know, it almost feels impossible to me, because also the scale, like, it's a small country, it's a small country, and then you try to do certain things, it's like the numbers don't add up, and then for certain things you need volume, right? And then the numbers just doesn't.
Well, it's a good segue to end this conversation, because think about it this way: you and I met in Guinea. Actually, we first spoke when I came to visit the Gambia. That was in December 2023, and I had seen your videos. My wife was my fiance at the time, and showed me your videos, and I saw the video you did about the guy who had the food factory. And then he had to move it to Senegal, right? And when you hear those stories, it discourages you sometimes about investing in a place, because you're hearing an entrepreneur say, "Oh, I started this, and I had to move." But then I reached out to you and I said, "Okay, I live in Guinea. I have a farm there. If you ever come, like if you're going through Guinea, you can come." And you say, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And then a few weeks later, you just call me and say, "I'm in Guinea," right? And I'm like, "Really? You're in Guinea?" It says, "Yeah, I'm in Guinea. You got into this shady hotel, so I had to go get you there." But I was really touched, because I went to Kenya with $100, knowing no one, and restarting my life from scratch. It took me a year, but I succeeded after that. And that experience taught me that we're not all the same who can take a risk and just, follow your dreams and go after things that are in your mind when everybody tells you don't do it. So when I saw that, I was really inspired. I was like, wow, this young man has audacity, he has a vision, he knows what he's doing. So, and then, we did the video on the farm. We had a great time in Guinea. Well, you had a great time in Guinea, right? I think I made your time better, right? But at least we have to give grace to the country. The country is getting better now. You have to come back again. So, long story short, I get married in the Gambia. I come to the Gambia, and then I see the same problem, in pineapple. I start solving, and you're one of the first people I called before I even started solving the problem, right? Told you about, what I saw as the issue, gave me some good advice, and then, the story is what it is today, right? We've changed the history of the Gambia in terms of pineapple production and all. But coming back to what you said about the challenges of building businesses in the Gambia, I've faced the same challenge, right? If you're thinking of large scale, you're always limited in terms of the numbers. And then when you're thinking of diversification, your challenge comes back to the human resource. So from all the people that you've interviewed and the people that you've studied, what do you think it takes to succeed in the Gambia? Yes, we've spoken about the person from the diaspora, but let's talk about entrepreneurs that are on the ground, right? What makes a successful entrepreneur in the Gambia, despite the low number of customers who have the willingness and the spending power to pay for certain services and products, despite the rising prices of everything? What makes a successful business in the Gambia for you?
I mean, I think that success thing is really subjective, right? For example, it's just that some of us, we are like, oh, we are thinking like, oh, we want this big thing, da, da, da. But really, for example, I'll take my father as an example, right? For my father, employing like 500 Gambians on the streets, getting them to join the security and start providing security services with 500 employees that who, at the end of the month, they are going home with 7,000, with 5,000. For my father, that is success right there, right? He is very happy. He has achieved, yes, he's happy. He's successful once he gets that, right? So for someone else, they want to have like 200,000 or they want to have like 10,000 young Gambians, right? So that will be almost impossible to get, right? Because now, I mean, I've worked with my father. We're starting that company. I was there on the ground, so I see how hard he worked really to get that. It's so hard to get even you're in a security company, to get people, right, to join you. First, sometimes you spend a lot of money to train, get them on board. They'll work 2 weeks and then they'll quit. You've spent the money. So that frustration, it has at some point, you have people like they quit, right? It is not going to work. So to success in Gambia, really, I would say it is really subjective, right? Because, especially, but then if you're looking at it in terms of the big numbers, the global scale and stuff, you will almost feel like, oh, there's no successful company in Gambia, right? But then for me, I believe that the likes of Ismail, going to the rural areas, providing a grandma with this healthcare service.
You mean Dr. Ismail Abaji?
Dr. Ismail, yeah. Going to CRR or something, providing a grandmother with a healthcare, like for me, I think for those people, that is success to them, right? They might not be making a lot of money, they might not be making a lot of money, but that is success. So I feel like in Gambia, the success for me, what I think is like for them, it's like this impact or this service that they're doing, right? Not necessarily in terms of revenue, because if the revenue wise, no, I don't. They're all like surviving. Like the likes of my father, they're just making enough to get by, to get by, and that's why all of them a lot of the time you see them trying to like diversify, try to get into other things, because they're like, this really, the way I'm seeing this thing, it is not very, very, very sustainable. It doesn't have that longevity. Like it will not last that long. So let me just try this, invest in this, invest in that, and just keep a balance. Like every month, this brings in small, this brings in, and then it's like this. That is like how I see people doing business in Gambia, pretty much, right? Yeah, that is pretty much how I see it.
I was speaking with a foreigner the other day who told me, he said, before the only businesses in the Gambia, like business was good before because there weren't a lot of Gambians doing business, and that was shocking for me to hear, because he said before it was only, and you said it too, that 90% of the major businesses across all these African countries do not belong to the Africans, right? So these guys were saying that before in the Gambia, most of the business was Lebanese, Mauritanian, and Fula. Right. And then now Gambians have started coming, opening shops, opening bakeries, opening businesses, doing so. That has just reduced the amount of money that these foreigners used to make. Right. However, that's what's also needed for the economy to grow.
Right. True.
To me, I refuse to see saturation in a market. Right. Why? Because whenever you say saturation, you mean that there's no more opportunity. And there's no such thing as no more opportunity. There's always somewhere to innovate if there's money going into the economy. So the more businesses are investing in the economy, and the more of those businesses are able to offer better services, those who are not offering better services will leave the economy. They'll have to leave the economy, right? They'll have to die, and the services will get better. What I think is going to allow for more financial success in Gambia is for more Gambians to do good business, right? Yes, the government needs to put in better policies that allow for Gambians to create businesses, for their businesses to be sustainable. There needs to be much regulation in terms of the competition, because some of these foreigners can have some advantages that local Gambians don't have, because they maybe don't have the money to go and pay to get some access. But at the end of the day, the tourism is a huge opportunity if we can increase the quality of tourists that come in the country, right? If the country is always attracting these poor foreigners, the amount of money that one person is spending is very low. But if we say we want to become a country that attracts high-paying tourists, which means that every hotel, every restaurant, every hostel needs to upgrade the quality of their service, right? And then from there, the taxis need to be upgraded, because we need to move away from these old German Mercedes from, I don't know, 1968 that people are still driving around, to newer, healthier type of vehicles, right? The country is going to attract people who can spend, because one thing that is the advantage for the Gambia is people like the Gambia because it's calm, it's peaceful. Compared to all these other countries in the West African region, where you want to come and relax and enjoy and have a good time with peace of mind, is the Gambia. But if the services that are being offered to the people who come with that money are still substandard, right? Then yeah, we're still gonna stay below the average and the opportunity. And then one last thing, let's stop boxing Gano as a YouTuber. Oh, because Gano is only doing YouTube. We've seen Gano doing YouTube. The day you see Gano doing real estate, you say, oh, look at him now. He's gone into real estate. Diversification is key to grow a small economy, right? Yep. There's no billionaire in Africa that is only having their shares in one business. It's not possible, right? Dangote is in multiple industries, right? Strive Masiwa, yes, he's in technology, but he's also very diversified. Tony Lumelu has, banking. In the banking, they have energy. They have an investment firm, Transcorp, that is invested in diversified, right? So, to me, if Gano decides I want to start doing real estate, I have skills in video production, in marketing, in storytelling. I want to make more money, and I want to go into real estate. We should encourage him in real estate. But immediately he'll start going into real estate. The guys in real estate are the first ones to start criticizing him. Look, he's all over the place. What does he know about real estate? The same way he didn't know anything about media and he came and succeeded. If he goes into real estate also, he can bring some innovation. He can bring some value to the market. Right. If later he wants to go into agriculture, also the same. So as we close this interview, what hope and what inspiration would you like to give to Africans, to Gambians, to people who look at Africa with a lot of excitement from your experience and what you've seen as to why we should invest back home and why we should invest in Africa?
Yeah, for me, like, it's really one thing. It's very simple. Like, we just have to make our countries work, right? That is just literally what I've just been playing in my head. And it is one thing that I'll just live with everyone out there, Why do we want to go to other places? Why do we love these places? Why do we admire this thing? It's because of it's this thing, right? Okay, you go to these countries, you see that, okay, look, some things are not right, but things are right. But who are making those things right? It is the locals. It is people from those countries, right? They're making their countries work, right? It is making their. You mentioned that thing about the tourism, right? Making like this. Like the standards, right? Improving the standards. But it is not the government, the standard improving. It is actually the people that will decide, okay, you know what? So it's this thing, like, just everyone just try to make whatever area, whatever sector that you are in, right? Try to make it work, right? Make it better, right? That is just what. If you're an investor, look at it from this point of, okay, I'm investing. Of course, you're an investor. Your goal, you want to make money, but how do I make Gambia work? How do I make Ghana work? How do I improve the conditions, right? Through my investments, right? You are into real estate, whatever it is, that just have this thing in mind. How do I make this place work? How do I make it better? 1% better, Yeah, there's this concept of like Kaizen, just 1% improvement, just make it better a little bit, gradual, do something about it, right? So for example, me, I was doing these my videos, alhamdulillah, I get messages sometimes with them, oh, I've invested in this business because of this, I've invested, and that really makes me happy, in a way. People are, okay, adding something to the Gambian economy because of some of the work that I've done, right? And now I'm even thinking about doing more of those things, right? Pushing more of that, right? So that would be also my way of like, okay, making Gambia work, right? Adding things there. So like everyone, just that, you just think of how can you make your countries work, right? So that people will come there, like the way you go to other countries and say, wow, I see myself living here. People will go to your countries and also see, wow, I actually see myself living here because of you. You're making this effort of making your country work. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me thank you first, because without your documentary coming to visit my farm and the conversations we had, I wouldn't have done what I've been able to do in the Gambia with the support of the diaspora partners who supported us, and then your dad also is our
Right.
biggest seedlings producer in the Gambia. So we are connected by blood now. We're connected by dreams, and we have so many other things that we're going to do together. So thank you so much for taking the time for Chico Unscripted. This is an amazing conversation. I'm already thinking about the title.
Mm.
Let's make Africa work, right?
It's
So
yeah.
we're happy. And yes, you are doing those videos. Those who need interviews, production, you're looking for investments, and you're looking for a great storyteller who can help you out. Gano Did It is the person to contact. I'm gonna put his details in the description box so that you guys can reach out to him. Thank you so much, brother, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, brother. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, all right. Take care.
All right, bro.